And welcome to News Tonight. Today, Ugandans participated in an election like no other amidst a pandemic. Wherever you are in anticipation of the updates from the polls. From now on, all the attention is switched to the Electoral Commission, and we are here to relay its declarations. My name is Rodangonzi. This is News Tonight. We start with President Yoweri Museveni, who has assured Ugandans that he will accept the final results of the election if there are no mistakes that were made in the tallying process. The president urged people to be peaceful and avoid violence. Mr. Museveni arrived at Karo High, Rushere Town Council, Nyabushozi County in Chiruhura District in company of his daughter, Patience Rabogo, and grandson, Mumutine Rabogo, shortly after 3 p.m. and cast his vote at 3:20 p.m. He later addressed the media briefly, urging people who have not voted to do so in the remaining time before close of the polls.
Oze ahateko ya kabiri muza kushangaho ba MP y'abashije
Kiruhura ngabo mura basawa zino akakonge amaze okateka ku mukono kubati kati akafunya akateke mu box omutu
Uganda watanabona mkozeseze kikazo nesigadeyo Mlonde, all Ugandans who have not voted use these minutes, 20 minutes I think, to vote. I congratulate all those who have voted. Let the counting be peaceful. Nobody should try to bring violence.
Will you accept the results?
Of course, if the results are fair, why would I not accept it? Why? Yes. If there were no mistakes made. Bw'oba tewalusomeza akolebwa mu kulonda ngenda kukkiriza ebivudde mu kulonda mu kubala.
The First Lady and Minister for Education and Sports, Janet Kataha Museveni, also cast her vote early afternoon at Karejera polling center, Ruhama County, Ntungamo District. Still with the elections, Major General Henry Tumukunde has commended Ugandans for turning up in large numbers to vote, saying massive voting reduces chances of rigging. Tumukunde was speaking to the media shortly after casting his vote at Kololo in Kampala.
A total of 11 presidential candidates have this Thursday had chance to vote for themselves after 3 months of intensive campaigns across the country, convincing the electorate to vote them in the top political position. One of the candidates, retired General Henry Tumukunde, cast his vote at Kololo in Kampala and commended the population for turning up in large numbers to vote.
And it can minimize the possibility of rigging. If mass voting comes in, you stand a chance of reducing the possibility of rigging.
He is, however, not happy with security for blocking him from campaigning in some of the districts.
Kasese, where we had a huge opposition vote, nothing. Wherever we had an opportunity to pick votes.
Tumukunde also had his say in as far as internet interruption is concerned.
We are just trying to use telephones, and you know, with the telephones you may never see anything vivid, nothing like evidence being transmitted to you. So true and Katumba yarabirira.
He is, however, optimistic that democracy will prevail. Adiana Kuti, UBC.
Meanwhile, Nancy Kalembe did cast her vote today at 10 a.m. at Forest Village, Muyenga. She believes in a peaceful transition of power as citizens exercise their right to vote this 14th of January 2021. She was pleased about the security surveillance that has not imposed threats and intimidation towards Ugandans at the polling station. We have more.
It doesn't stop here. Sometimes when you feel like a lot is out of your control, you rest in peace knowing that God is in control. In Philippians 4:6 it says, "Do not be anxious for anything, but in all things through prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your needs be known unto God, and the peace of God that surpasses all understanding shall garrison your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus." So that's where I'm at right now.
Being the only woman in the race, she believes victory belongs to her and that it's time for Ugandans to have a steady transition after the declaration.
I believe that we are also going to have a peaceful transition of power, because we all know that the government is going to change, but we are going to have a peaceful transition of power, and we shall have security without threats.
Nancy Kalembe was full of grace as she came to cast her vote this morning at Forest Village, Muyenga, and not in Uganda district.
I happen to have registered from Muyenga because this is where I've been living.
Earlier on, she couldn't vote from Uganda like it was anticipated. But as she has explained, she has Uganda at heart, and she believes for the best.
For this, I thank God, and I pray that we will continue, that more leaders will copy this trend and decide to choose peace, not mudslinging, just dignified politics. We need to sanitize the leadership space, and the corridors of power need to be sanitized with good leaders, respectable leaders.
She was not pleased about the total shutdown of the internet connections in the nation, a sign of injustice for many Ugandans.
Switching off the internet by the government is a clear sign that something is wrong. A whole country has decided that, a whole government has decided that the nation has no freedom of expression, freedom of communication, freedom of speech. And
Nancy is optimistic that the ballot will speak louder than any mudslinging, and the future leaders should borrow a leaf from this peace and dignity that she exercised all through her race. Sandra Kabuleta, Andrew Sedura, UBC News.
And independent presidential candidate Fred Mwesigye has cast his ballot at Banga in Nantaba. Mwesigye urged the public to remain peaceful irrespective of what transpires after the polls.
People in Nantaba, Banga and Chiogo turned up in big numbers to cast their votes in the presidential and the parliamentary election 2021. The exercise that got underway Thursday morning witnessed delays in some places. The voters observed standard operating procedures put in place by the Ministry of Health aimed at curbing the spread of COVID-19, and anyone without a face mask was pulled out of the queue. At around 9:30 in the morning, presidential candidate Fred Mwesigye arrived to cast his vote.
So once the foundation is changed, and which is having leaders in Uganda that fear God at all levels, that is what is going to change Uganda. That's what is going to help our good manifestos come to pass or be realized. So putting that aside, as a president, this is what I want to tell Uganda, that be courageous and be strong in the Lord. Uganda is safe in the hands of God. Uganda's future is a great one in the Lord. So no one should scare you or threaten you. Not even foreign forces should threaten you. Why? Because Uganda is in the hands of God. Therefore, be free after voting, go back home and wait for the results. A good leader, or all leadership, comes from God. So whatever will come out, we believe it will be from the Lord, and that's what we will follow. But like I've told you, something has begun today on the 14th of January. You will witness that as time goes on.
Mr. Mwesigye emphasized that having leaders who fear God is the only solution that Uganda needs for prosperity. Nantaba municipality has over 74 polling stations scattered around 24 villages with over 500 eligible voters. Zahara Bigaba, Kagugubesula, UBC.
Independent presidential candidate John Katumba cast his vote early today and is sure victory belongs to him. Katumba arrived at Nsavo polling station, Nama sub-county, Mukono district, in his usual pomp, with supporters rallying behind him like has been the case throughout the campaign trail. He offered his thought of the electoral process, which he expects to finalize successfully with him at the helm of leadership.
Mu kulonda wano ndabye nga system yennyini eyo gye bagamba gye bakozesa eri down nera embeera si nnungi, ne ba agenti bange bagambye nti data bamushatinze down, tebasobola ku accessinga appointment letters kubanga since yesterday bamushatinze down. Since yesterday some of them babadde tebannakufuna mpapula ezo ziteeka empapula ezo zikola ki zikubisa, naye at the end of the day Katonda atuyambye, nero oluvaano tugenda ku tally center tulabe nga tufuna amazima.
And Speaker of Parliament Rebecca Litwala Kadaga has cast her vote at Busoya Kisementi polling station in Kamuli district. The incumbent Kamuli district woman MP is confident of victory and in the aftermath targets improvement of livelihoods of people not only in Kamuli but Uganda in general.
The issue of health and sanitation, especially provision of water, is very, very high on the agenda. It has to continue. The water is not sufficient. There are too many people in the community, and little distribution. I've done quite a lot. I think I've distributed over 150 boreholes, but they're still not enough. So that one has got to continue. The issue of health services, many parishes have no health center too. That is something we also need to address. We need more secondary schools because we have several new sub-counties, especially town councils. So the rural or the town council does not have a secondary school. But what is coming out of the community is a strong desire for technical education. So that's something we also need to address. Then, of course, the other road infrastructure. And then income generation for the households.
And the Katikkiro of Uganda, Charles Peter Mayiga, has joined many other Ugandans in the call for peace to prevail during this electoral process. He made this request after casting his ballot in Zana, where several Ugandans showed zeal by turning up in large numbers to cast their vote. This 2021 Uganda general election is special in its own way, for it brings 11 presidential candidates and a stiff competition at parliamentary level in various parts of the country.
On Tuesday, I urged voters to come out and cast their votes. We have experienced numerous challenges, but that alone doesn't stop you from voting. Because out of the 3 candidates, 1 votes today. One may have victory for 1 or 2 or the 3 of them. And when your candidate succeeds, you hope that the reasons why you voted him or her will be handled during the term of office for that particular candidate. So it is important to vote. It's our constitutional right to vote, and voting helps nurture democracy. I'm very pleased that members of the press can freely cover the events, and I hope they can relay the reports they gather from the different polling stations. Unfortunately, the internet is off, which makes it extremely difficult. I also urged members of the security agencies to be professional as they carry out their duty during this exercise. When you cast your vote, continue observing law and order. We want a peaceful election. We don't want spilling of blood. We don't want violence. So we hope it can remain as peaceful as I can watch here where I've voted. And I hope ultimately we shall have a peaceful environment at the end of it all.
Presidential candidate Joseph Kabuleta is grateful to Ugandans for turning up in big numbers, not only during the campaigns, but also at the polls. Kabuleta is certain that his message has sunk in and will see him assume presidency in the next 48 hours.
The country is ready for change. And thankfully we are at a time where change is inevitable, and we've seen that across this country. And I am convinced that we are entering into a new era. There's something new about this election, there's something new about this year, and there's a lot of hope and expectancy in Ugandans, among Ugandans, about what is coming out of this election. So I am very hopeful, and I'm very glad for the people across this nation, all over the nation, who have supported me, have supported my candidature, who have supported the issues that I raise. And I have endeavored to be the one, actually the one person who has put my message up ahead of everything else, ahead of myself, ahead of my personality. And I've put out a message that has resonated with so many Ugandans, and that is a message of hope, that we do not have to be despondent, we do not have to despair about the future of our country. We have a lot going for us. The only one thing that we had going against us is bad leadership. And now that is going to be sorted. So when the leadership is sorted, then all the things regarding this nation, so many of them are going to come good.
It's a very good area. The one there, I've already voted for himself and I don't know whether he voted.
And the National Unity Platform presidential candidate Kyagulanyi Sentamo Robert has asked his voters to remain calm as the country undergoes the election period. Kyagulanyi, who addressed the media at his home in Magere before being accompanied by his wife Barbara Kyagulanyi to cast their respective votes, also expressed dissatisfaction where he alleged that some of his election agents were arrested. The Kyagulanyis cast their votes at 10 a.m. at Magere Freedom Square polling station.
Turned out in large numbers to cast their vote. We have always encouraged them and we continue to encourage them to be peaceful, to be non-violent, but to be vigilant. I continue to encourage all Ugandans that have not yet cast their vote to turn up. Make sure you go and cast your vote. This is a historical election that we all must take part in. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you, and we head to the polls, my wife and I.
Katumba. Police officer. Officer, why you now we?
President wa Kumbi. Tuinayo mulala.
Mama nga watu
wakera musajja. Oka wansi nawe. Ko wansi.
Tetukuziga. Wewe Naojeto, kanaje tugenda okola. Naojeto, kanaje tugenda okola.
President wa Kumi. Thank you.
The 2021 general elections have been reported to be peaceful, and the Electoral Commission celebrates this milestone achieved so far. The Public Relations Officer, Electoral Commission, Paul Bukenya, says polling agents have, however, encountered challenges of opening the process and the use of biometric verification machines.
Electoral Commission has concluded conducting presidential and general parliamentary elections in 34,684 polling stations across the country. It has also put a complaints desk to handle issues, especially those related to the voter register.
Here, which has been receiving and responding to complaints and advising on actions that are needed to resolve register-related questions. Basically that, register-related issues, and people asking about their voting locations up to.
Voting materials were delivered on time. However, the Electoral Commission reports challenges in the use of biometric verification machines in some isolated areas.
Related to opening processes, which are elaborate, including the use of technology, the biometric vote verification machine. So we started getting those updates, and we know now that they were in scattered places. They were just isolated cases, but certainly we moved fast because we have a very active support team, IT support team, and the support systems were activated to ensure that polling takes place, it continues.
Bukenya also shed light on the issue of suspension of elections of directly elected members of parliament in Kalembe district, saying there was a mismatch of candidates' photos.
Incidences reported to our complaints desk. The first one, of course, was an incident in Ntungamo where someone ran off with a polling kit and our ballot papers, and that matter has been pursued by police. And then, of course, the other matter relates to voting that we've suspended in Kalembe North because there was a mismatch in the particulars of the candidates on the ballot paper. So the people of Kalembe North have not cast ballots for direct elected member of parliament. They voted for presidential and district woman MP.
Meanwhile, internet cutoff has affected communication with polling agents, especially on several media platforms. Electoral Commission has adopted a closed user group system for messages to manage the situation. Bukenya says transmission of results will, however, be done electronically.
Social media platforms, of course, came down. We knew that we needed to have capacity to transmit, communicate via SMS and direct calls. We've been doing that. Direct calls are helpful. We are in a closed user group system, so we can call each other and handle issues that are emerging and give guidance on issues that are coming out on the way. So the next levels perhaps relate to transmission of results, for which arrangements have been made so that we do not have interruptions and delays.
As the country awaits results from today's election, Bukenya urges members of the public and authorities concerned to respect and accept the citizens' decision. I'm Navka Farida in Kampala.
And elections in Kampala have been smooth and peaceful as most Ugandans went to the polls this morning. Business was unusually slow since few people were operating.
Today, Kampala has been peaceful and calm as Ugandans try to access the polling stations to go and cast their votes. Few people have also been seen trying to operate, as many were busy casting the votes, and security was beefed up to all polling stations to ensure peaceful voting. Voters at different polling stations in Kampala confirm election materials were brought earlier that enabled them to vote quickly and peaceful.
Twakwesunze mu ngeri ey'essanyu era ey'enjawulo abamu tetwebase na tulo wembadde okulonda ebikozesebwa byakedde okutuuka nga Electoral Commission bwe yakoze eki bwe yalambise kale wabaddewo okwemululamu abatuuze ne bakaayana akati alabye embeera ng'ekaayanye ne batukkiriza ne tusimba layini okulonda ndese kutandise kubanze olumaze okulonda nenkola ki nenvaayo okunoonya kasente ate
obululu bukedde era essaawa eno maze okutikinga omuntu wange gwenjagala era nkakasa oba nsaba bonna abalonda tugondera amateeka g'ebyokulonda tumale okulonda tuddeyo ewaka.
While others didn't start in time due to unfunctioning of biometrics, forcing them to follow normal registers.
Katandise okola ate bwe kavaako bwe kaddako kati tetubitegeera pulaani byebeera ki kati batugaye kakolera ku internet teriiko kati akuuma kaako tekakola tuli mu layini okuva saawa egi bandi tuyambye ne batubuulira pulaani B tuzaako ki okuva ku ssaawa egi nakati ate bwe ziwera ssaawa 10 nga batusalako biyinza okuba ng'ebyalulinze ntiddemu luli tetwalonda kati ssaawa namba abantu 2 be bakalunda tunaggwayo ddi
kumako baleeta kafu kuba nabukolako tebannabuyiga bulungi tabasomesa buyiga
kabadde tekakola ne tugenda mu register era kati amanya tusoma masome kudde abantu anti obalaba naawe bantu bangi ate bakola kasoobo.
The question remains, will every Ugandan get a chance to cast their votes by the stipulated time? Shaidat Nasaku, UBC.
And voters in Nabweru Sub-County, Wakiso District, Kalembe and Lubaga Division in Kampala converged at various polling stations to cast their votes for the President and members of Parliament. But in some areas UBC TV visited, especially in Wakiso District, there were delays in the delivery of election materials.
Sawa zino zigenda wera 2 nayo buli buganya kutuuka twakedde wano sawa 11 nakatobuute bunnakuuka tumanyi tukedde ku makya tuyimiridde wano pati tulaba kigenda mu maaso security na tewali tulinganga abazuubuzi okutuula okutuusa twala obudde kuva ku makya tuli wano tewaliwo kiriwo tewali bokisi n'emu tewali security tulaba just manjege gakuwumba tetulite.
Somero lyaffe lyakifahari okulonda kubadde mutambula bulungi ebintu bituuse mu budde aba Electoral Commission babituusiza mu budde obutebeekevu we buli tewaliwo obuzibu bwonna bantu bali mu kulonda mukulembeze w'eggwanga.
Meanwhile, our reporter Ivan Kwahwa was in Mulago and Kisenyi to assess the poll process there, and these were the findings by Press Time. Let's take a look.
Ugandans have flooded polling stations around Kampala suburbs to vote for presidential and parliamentary candidates. It is about 8 a.m. Thursday morning, and we are at Makerere University Primary School polling station in Mukwenda Zone, Kubiri. Voting was smooth, though the exercise started 2 hours late from stipulated time of 7 a.m.
I'm very happy because I've already done what I wanted to come and do.
In Kisenyi Parish, residents upon voting would leave polling stations immediately. Some polling stations were squeezed in such a way that they failed to accommodate the large turnout of voters.
This year's general election is quite unique due to the presence of COVID-19, whereas it has been a challenge for voters to maintain social distancing as advised by the Ministry of Health. Many of them have endeavored to arrive at polling stations with their masks to exercise their right to vote.
So people are not
prepared by other way. Electoral Commission has not prepared people to be social distanced. So we find ourselves that we must be near, everybody is near to each other. So let us, we pray for God, people, so that they can be in a good, nice condition after this.
We know nobody can affect anybody because the masks are on. As far as the COVID is concerned, we are moving the guidelines of the COVID.
Voting kits were well spaced to ensure people are not squeezed while voting, and upon accessing polling stations, sanitizing was mandatory. Security was under routine surveillance, both on land and in air, around various polling jurisdictions. I thank the security forces for keeping calm. If you compare with other elections, at this polling station, there has not been any disruption. On the other hand, the use of biometric voter verification kits was a challenge at some polling stations. The kits are not working completely. Others worked until 11 a.m. and stopped working. These were close to 100 machines. Section 57 of the Presidential Elections Act compels the Commission to declare in writing under its seal the results of the presidential election within 48 hours from close of polling.
God will have to decide who is going to win and who will be the winner. That's the one we shall have to move with. I'm appealing to the youth that demonstrating riots, it's a havoc. Don't do that. That's the killer disease of each and everything.
On Saturday 16th, the president-elected is expected to be announced from Chambogo Playground, which is the official national tally center. Ivan Kahwa, UBC News in Kampala.
General Mugisha Muntu cast his vote at Kitunga Church of Uganda polling station, Reshamire sub-county in Tungamo district. He, like many other opposition presidential candidates, Muntu wishes for a free and fair process.
We wait and see how the day ends. We hope that there won't be any manipulation today. We have not yet got information from different parts of the country. We really hope that this will be a stable, free, fair and transparent process. And then by the time the day closes, which will be at 4, we would have got information from all over the country, and then we'll be able to make judgment. The only channels are voice and text. But normally, if there is an incident on a polling polling area, and you're able to take photographs, then you can send them. You can send them to Electoral Commission. You can send them wherever you want to send them. Because if it's something real, I wouldn't see any reason why it should be hidden.
Meanwhile, Willie Mayambala cast his vote at Waziba Church of Uganda Primary School in Luwero district and decried the unfair treatment. Just a stone's throw away, Luwero district woman member of parliament candidate Sisi Mulondo also cast her ballot at Wabusana Primary School and laid emphasis on what she plans to attain for her constituency.
Internet shutdown is proof of fear. The government of Uganda is cowardizing. And I guarantee you, fellow countrymen, when fear comes in, you can't defend yourself. Don't fear. However much the government is afraid, I request you not to fear. Stand up against them. Let us give them a knockout through using our vote. Go out there, vote for Mayambala as your president. And I guarantee you, the knockout will give this government, will set it packing and leaving this country, Uganda.
I have just casted my vote today, and I think history has been made in Luwero since they are going to get what they have been missing all along. In the next 5 years, we will have a change, and a real change, or we can call it a fundamental change, whereby even my predecessors are going to follow.
And it was an early morning for an early duty of many Ugandans ready to exercise their civil right to vote for their next president and parliamentary leaders. This was at different polling stations in Kampala district where voters and candidates went to cast their votes.
By 6 a.m., some polling stations in Kampala had already been equipped with ballot papers for the electoral process. Voters at the polling stations observe the standard operating procedures in place to curb the spread of COVID-19 in order to participate in the election.
Voters arrived in time. People are very eager to vote. Actually, most people arrived before the voting time.
Many candidates, including Margaret Ziwa of NRM and National Unity Platform's Joel Sonyinyi, both standing for Nakawa West, Member of Parliament, are very optimistic about the results once the voting process comes to an end.
That I am going to win. I have tested the ground, like I've said. I've tested the pulse. We have seen what's been going on. So I would rather stick to the hopeful side.
In case they don't, I'm going to follow up on where is the problem. If they genuinely didn't give me the vote, then I'm not their choice. I'll not hang them, it's their right. I'll go back to my house, in my residence, plot 16 Balkudembe Road, and I thank God for that.
General Henry Tumukunde, one of the presidential candidates, believes it will be hard for any of the candidates to garner 51% of the election.
Let's see what the results will say. But I can tell you I'm one candidate who crossed from the west to the north to the east to Uganda. And I was largely very well received.
Overall, the process has been peaceful, organized and secure, something many didn't anticipate.
Voters at different polling stations in Kampala have expressed excitement during the tallying of ballots. In some areas, some voters were denied access to their polling stations, and security was beefed up to control the angry supporters. By press time, tallying was still on in various places.
At exactly 4 p.m., most polling stations in Kampala had started tallying votes, while others were still casting the votes, with only those in the line still voting.
Robert.
In Machindya division, polling stations among others Mutalaga, Butters, Olinchiwi, also Nabidi House, and White Nile in Waga division started tallying on time, and Ugandans were already excited.
Onda kuwedesa wa 10 era katubala kalulu abantu bennonze bonna bawangudde bakyawangudde bakyali waggulu mbadde nonda ambuleera tusaba busabi ebintu nga bwe tubikoze ku grawundi ate ne bakama baffe ababibalira eyo waggulu ababigattira eyo waggulu bagatte ekyo kye tubaweereza.
Some Ugandans have been seen witnessing the votes, and others were denied from accessing the polling stations. By press time, candidate Robert Kyagulanyi Sentamo was still on the lead. Also at some polling stations, security was tightened to ensure safety of Ugandans. Shaidat in Nasaku, UBC.
The Kayunga District Woman Member of Parliament, Nantaba, has unsuccessfully petitioned the Electoral Commission over alleged bribery of her agents. That's minutes to the Thursday polls. Nantaba claims she learnt of her agents' bribery by her opponents and embarked on a replacement move, which was unfortunately halted when she was allegedly arrested and detained for floating curfew regulations.
Former Minister and contestant for Kayunga District Woman Member of Parliament, Nantaba, has petitioned the Electoral Commission over what she terms unfair play by her opponents with bribing her agents at the last minute. On Thursday, while residents of Kayunga joined the rest of Ugandans to vote, one of the contestants in the race for the District Woman Member of Parliament, Nantaba, was busy filing a petition with the Electoral Commission. In her petition, Nantaba was seeking the Electoral Commission to hold voting for the District Woman Member of Parliament on grounds that she did not have substantive agents.
I don't trust, first of all, already the electoral process. Now, I don't trust it. I don't have agents at the polling station. First of all, I had to mobilize my agents some time back. But a few days to elections, I heard that the same agents had been bribed by the same person. So I had to quickly switch and mobilize other agents.
So far, the election is going on well, because practically the whole process as it started, they've been including us. The Electoral Commission of Kayunga is very working and open, because they would communicate to us immediately when the boxes reached. We were all informed that please bring your agents or you can come yourself. So those who were able to show up, we showed up, and those who sent agents, our agents, were all able to receive the boxes.
Nantaba popularly accuses the NRM district chairperson, Moses Kalagwa, for floating all this with the aim of frustrating her third shot at Parliament. However, Rashidi Msengesi, the Kayunga district returning officer, is pressing police over Nantaba's petition.
Sina chimanyi ku kiwandiiko kyonna ekyatuweereddwa omukyalo oyo nga yeemukunya ensonga y'abaagents. Ayinza okuba yeemulugunyiza mu ngeri yonna, naye tetulina ngeri entongole emanyiddwa ku nsonga eyo.
Despite these hiccups, voters turned up in big numbers to cast their votes.
And now let's head to the National Tally Center in Kyambogo, Jordan. Good evening, Jordan. How are you doing today?
At the National Tally Center in Kyambogo, where we are coming to you live. Thank you so much for also being that side, coordinating whatever we are bringing to you. We are expecting the first batch of the results from the district that will have gotten done with their tallying first, and very soon we shall be coming in with it. But for now, we want to talk to the deputy spokesperson of the Uganda People's Defense Forces, that is Lieutenant Colonel Deo Akiki, Air Force that has been a stakeholder in the whole exercise. We want to know what their role has been and how proud are they, plus whatever we should expect from today onwards, because an election, we still expect more, the district elections, councillors to LC1. Yes, Lieutenant Colonel Deo Akiki, welcome to the show.
Thank you, UBC, for keeping Ugandans watching on what is happening and what they are doing for the future of this country, to make sure that they put to use their rights and vote the leaders they want.
Okay. Lieutenant Colonel Akiki, what has been your role in this particular election as the UPDF?
Well, as the UPDF, we have not been working as UPDF a single force. From the word go, there was an architecture that was coined, which is a joint security task force that was to make sure that the security of this country, the security of Ugandans, the security of their property, and the security during and after elections is ensured. And we have done exactly that. Actually, before I go very far, I would like to congratulate Ugandans that the first part, a very important part of these elections, has passed with very, very minimal incidences of disturbing during the elections or when people were casting their ballots. I would like to congratulate Ugandans for this. And we as UPDF, as other security agencies, we promised this country that it is going to be peaceful. And we can assure you they are going to continue enjoying this peaceful atmosphere to make sure that the exercise reaches its conclusion. As UPDF, yes, we have been taking very heavy tasks, but under the same umbrella where we are working together with other security agencies. The Uganda Police Force has been the leading agency, and we are giving it all the support that we can. As I have ever said before, that the support we give to the Uganda Police Force depends on the threat that the Uganda Police Force thinks it is getting. For that matter, it does not necessarily mean that you have to see a bigger number of police or a bigger number of UPDF. All is jointly done. We might be having a force operating here, purely UPDF, without police, but the command and control and all the orders and coordination is coming from the Uganda Police Force. Some people were asking why all of these forces on the roads, in the polling centers around the country. Dear Ugandans, this is not an exercise that we should leave in the hands of the well-wishers whom we are not even sure of. This is an exercise that determines the destiny of this country. And as custodian of this security, as people who are mandated by the Ugandan Constitution, Article 208 and Article 209 of our Constitution, it is our mandate to make sure that we protect Ugandans and make sure they go and vote freely, without any intimidation, and go back home freely, and wait to hear the results of the leaders they have chosen. And we have done exactly that. And we want to ensure, or to assure Ugandans that we are going to continue giving that same security to Ugandans until this exercise is done, and after some time, until actually when the new president is sworn in.
Okay. Afande Akik, there have been complaints about your presence during the campaigns. What has been your role? What have you done? What kind of tasks have you carried out as the UPDF during the campaigns? And what would be, what do you make of the interpretations of the different parties, be it the opposition, other political parties within the elections, and how they have interpreted your presence during the campaigns?
One thing I want to tell is, whoever you see is complaining about the presence of security, you simply know he has an ulterior motive. Everybody wants security. And I want to assure you that Ugandans have a lot of trust when they see UPDF out there, when they see Uganda police out there, when they see this combination of security, when they see lines of security forces passing through their area. It gives confidence. And this is exactly what we have been doing. Not only giving just confidence, but also sending a signal that if you try to do contrary to what we are expecting, we shall be there to make sure that we give Ugandans the peace they deserve. So those people who complained that we have come out too big and huge force, what is their fear? Do they have some intentions that they are harboring, that our presence has deterred them? I want to believe so.
During the campaigns, you talked about as a force that beat people, you made arrests and things like that. What do you make of that?
You know very well, during the campaigns, there are 2 days of mayhem that this country faced. And it was until that we detected in a very short time and came in as UPDF, gave maximum supported police That is how the Mayam stopped. And since that time, we have held ourselves into the city. We have made sure that we are everywhere to ensure that there is peace. And I think that activity opened our eyes. Whatever happened, it was regrettable. And we cannot just sit in the barracks or be doing other things. I hear people, we are supposed to be at our protecting borders and all that kind of talk that is not right. Because we are constitutionally mandated to give support to the civil authority when there is a certain situation. When Bududa collapsed, when other calamities come, we come in and help. Why should we miss this very moment when this country is taking a very serious decision? And when we received all types of intelligence indicating that the intentions of some members of society, supported by some other factors from both inside and outside, and we'll give that to a deaf ear? No. And I think Ugandans should be aware that they have a force that can protect this country.
Maybe it is because
protected our neighbors. We have done it everywhere. We are experts. So when we decide to take a security measure, we are taking it after thorough analysis of the situation, and I think Ugandans can testify. That is what led to people coming out massively to vote and people going home peacefully. Up to now, we have very, very minor incidences.
Maybe it is because of some areas where you are cited to be a bit high-handed when handling those that are caught on the wrong side of the law as the UPDF. Don't you think that is where some people get to misinterpret your presence?
It depends what you mean by high-handedness. You see, there is this misinterpretation of what they call maximum and minimum force. Minimum force or maximum force depends on the threat that I'm facing. If I'm a security person, my reaction is proportional, is determined by how much threat I'm facing. So if we see people threatening to burn out to the city, if we see people wanting to burn fuel stations, if we see people shooting our soldiers with arrows from rooftops, like we've done, and now we have occupied most of the rooftops of buildings in this city because we went to some rooftops and found people there hiding pavers to pelt them to our security forces, and we just leave it at that? No. So the amount of force that we use is determined by the threat that we see or that we have analyzed, or what police gives us as this is the threat and how much strength we should use. So if there is a threat that we think can cause a certain destruction, then we should come in probably ×3 of that threat in order to make sure that it is subdued.
Are there areas where you have noticed your officers having gone overboard?
Well, I wouldn't want to restrict myself on this very occasion. We have had situations where we have our officers going to the extreme at some points, and you have known what we have, you know what we do with that. There is no officer that makes a mistake in the UPDF that can go away with it. We have taken our officers to court. We have given them maximum sentences. The other day you heard we gave a soldier 101 years. So in the forces, to be particular in UPDF, even if it is me, if I make a mistake or if I go against the law, the punishment that is given is that befitting that very crime that I have committed. And there is no doubt anybody, there is no anybody who can come out and blame us that we have closed an eye to our soldier because he committed such a sin against a civilian or committed such a crime.
Okay. Afande, you talked about the deployment that we saw towards today, around Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, up to date. In town there were even these big vehicles that were driving around. Do you really get surprised that some Ugandan really developed some fear about the evidence, the existence of these vehicles amongst the public and things like that? Look at the people in the villages seeing these trucks driving around. What kind of feedback did you receive?
One, as I have said at the beginning, that it is those who had bad intentions that would fear that. I have now evidence of the results of those machines moving around the city to restore confidence of the Ugandans. The results are people by 7, actually by 6. I had wanted to vote as early as 7. I could not vote because the line was full. If those vehicles, those machines that were on the road, if those files of soldiers on the road was scarce, then we would have had a very low turn-up. I don't want to pronounce myself on the big turn-up. I don't know how much percentage that is the work of the Electoral Commission. But by look of things, you have been on the media, you have been seeing peaceful elections and good turn-up, which has not been the case actually in many of the previous elections that we have held. So I don't think that those machines scared away anybody. On the contrary, people got confidence that, oh, so we have this capacity. We have had about some isolated incidences, for example, I think in Kasubi Zone 3, where some people were threatening to come in and grab the ballot boxes. The call actually came to me. I called back to cross-check with security. In no minute, these vehicles had reached the incident, and people who intended to do anything silly, they were stopped. So those vehicles were to show how rapid we can reach an incident and thwart it. And this is what has been happening in some of these isolated incidences. But one thing is, Ugandans developed more confidence, and the result is they turned out and they voted massively. So we are here waiting for the results. Maybe we'll know how much percentage, but the peace, the fear of those who intended to cause mayhem is not...
This is what your task is.
Absolutely.
Now, the exercise is still going on. We have only had two aspects of the whole general elections, just the presidency and the parliamentary elections. We still have districts, city mayors, town councils, all that list. What plans do you have as the UPDF in terms of ensuring security like you've done for this particular part of the exercise?
Yeah, first of all, you know very well that definitely the presidential and parliamentary elections are the focus of the world, are the focus of Ugandans, and it is the big thing. And I wouldn't want to be a pessimist. I want to be very optimistic. If we can have this period from morning up to now peaceful, I can assure you we are capable of having more peace in the coming next part of the elections. And two is we are not going to calm down. We are not going to lower our deployments. We are not going to pull out some forces simply because we have finished casting votes for the president and for the members of parliament. I told you we are going to remain on the streets. We are going to remain providing security until the president swears in. Even after the president swears in, we have certain time frame. But even after that, we don't pull out simply because we have finished the elections. We only change on the strategy of making sure that Uganda is kept safe and secure. These elections have come and they are going away. Uganda is going to be here tomorrow. We are going to continue enjoying this peace that we have enjoyed for the last several years. And it is our obligation to make sure that it is sustainable peace.
Thank you so much, Deo Akiki. Lieutenant Colonel Deo Akiki, the deputy spokesperson of the UPDF. We thank you so much, Afande, for that time. Rhoda, that is the deputy spokesperson of the UPDF, and he says they have been part of this electoral exercise in terms of providing security, backing up the police force, and ensuring that Ugandans do go for the polls peacefully. And according to him, the results show that they have really achieved a very good percentage of that. So they plan to do more as the exercise continues to the election of the local governments, mayors, LC5 chairmen, councillors, and all leaders at that level. Back to you, Rhoda. Thanking you, our viewer, for watching. We're still giving you more updates from here at the National Tally Center, where we expect to receive results from different districts, from all the districts in Uganda, till the day the winner of the presidential election will be announced here in Kyambogo. Back to you, Rhoda.
Thank you, Michael. We will bring you more updates from the Tally Center. But for now, I hand over to Charles Odongotho as he makes further analysis of today's polls so far. Very quickly, Charles, through your eyes, what is the view of, and that's before I leave you to it, generally, what's your view towards the polls today so far?
Hi, Rhoda, and good evening to Ugandans out there. The impression I get is that the election day was peaceful, which is a good thing, and I think Ugandans, as Ugandans, we need to pat ourselves and congratulate ourselves for having a peaceful election. Of course, the analysis begin, and one of the interesting analyses, and some people are saying that was the peaceful run of the day due to the shutdown or the slowdown of social media and internet. It's a very interesting one, and that's something that we'll be talking about. And for people like Rhoda and the rest, the Bazukulus, I think that's something you need to look into. And yeah, but to have a peaceful election, for me, I think we need to congratulate ourselves. Now the results are trickling in, and we now turn our eyes and focus towards the Abakama and team, the Electoral Commission, and to see how they are coming in. And the most interesting one, probably more than even the presidential, people should be looking at the parliamentary election results. That's going to be some interesting, very interesting outcome there across the country.
Very true, Charles. I leave you to it.
Thanks a lot. And yes, thanks, Rhoda, and thanks to the team. We are now going to continue. I don't know up to what time. Maybe we will be having our supper in here. And I have a team here. I'm embarrassed to start by saying we have no lady. The ladies could not move at night, fear of security. But I have the Honorable Mike Kennedy Sevalu, a long-time old friend, and who has decided to hide until the elections brought him out. Sevalu is a former MP in the Ugandan Parliament, and is also a former member of the East African Legislative Assembly two times, and he is now an NRM you know, supporter, a strong one at that. Sevalu, it's good to see you again and to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dong Tho. It's a pleasure joining you and my colleague.
Are you winning?
Yeah, we are winning.
Are you?
We are winning. We are in this to win.
Yes, that's a nice one.
We've done everything to mobilize support for victory, and until the final announcement, my candidate and my party is the party to beat.
Good.
So we are.
Of course, being the incumbent, you are the one to beat.
Yeah.
I know that is what the opposition wants you more. Next to on Sevalu's right is a man who doesn't need too much introduction, but I will still, out of courtesy, do it, and for especially those who are watching him maybe for the first time. Mr. Ramadan Gobi is a senior, is a lecturer at Makerere University Business School, Nakawa, and he is one of our analysts this evening, and but he is also a member of the Behind the Headlines talk show, which is every Wednesday here on UBC at 10 p.m. Ramadan, you're most welcome back to the show. Yesterday we were here, and today is a fresh day, election night. It's good to see you.
Dong Tho, I'm wondering why it has taken the elections to invite me on your show. I thought you were my friend.
Now that you decided to invite yourself.
Now I'm realizing that I'm not your confidant as I thought.
These fair weather friendships. Now I needed you for the election analysis. But gentlemen, let's start. I am interested in us starting from what I was, you know, preambling with our newsreader, Rhoda. The question of a peaceful election, what do you attribute this to? Many people were worried. A few days to the election, there was some tension that maybe, and of course we saw the heavy deployment. Yesterday on the show here, some people were actually even asking the question, why the too much deployment? Are we in a battle? Is it a war? Is Kampala a war zone and all that? What do you attribute to the to this peaceful turn-up of election? And can we sustain this? How do you ensure that? How do we ensure that other elections that will follow? Because this month is really election. There are 21 in total that Electoral Commission is organizing starting from today. So is it possible to maintain this peace, and what do you attribute it to? Let me start with Sevalo.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think peace is central to any process that involves many people. It is very, very central. And the background to this can also partly explain. You know, the COVID-19 disruption has kind of denied people the real excitement of participating massively in electoral processes in terms of campaigns. But the messaging using different media platforms has been very effective, and majority of the message really centered around mobilizing people for voting. I've taken time off on radio and TV, and you'd really get announcements and adverts and messages calling upon people to massively come out and vote. So that mobilization was quite effective in terms of connecting with the population. But the population needed assurance in terms of the peace architecture and the peace security arrangements in place. The address of the president as we moved towards the election, assuring the nation regarding security and peace, definitely was also a game changer. So that can be seen to be one of the reasons that people felt the confidence. And the kind of power display, I can call it a power display, gave people that sense of confidence that all is going to be well. Okay. But you can also look at this from the viewpoint of the appreciation of the process. It's a vote of confidence in the process, electoral process, that Ugandans believe in elections, and they've come to demonstrate their support to their candidates, because candidates did mobilize massively to have their supporters participate. And to me, the voter turnout, which is likely to be one of the best in recent times, has demonstrated that the Ugandan population has confidence in the electoral process. That goes to say. Because at times, even in terms of legitimacy at the end of the day, whoever carries the day, the level of legitimacy will be high given the voter turnout. Okay. Because there are situations where you are victorious, but in an electoral process that has been, that has attracted minority participation.
Does it matter?
It does. It does.
In the end, the result is what matters.
Yeah, the results matter, but in terms of legitimacy.
Maybe for pride.
No, not pride, not pride. At the end of the day, in terms of legitimacy, it has a bearing in terms of your weight as a leader. Because, you know, assuming you win an electoral process where 10% of the electorate participated, you will feel it even in yourself that something was not right somewhere, and maybe, and your first preoccupation will be to regain the confidence of the population. Okay. But the young, the young generation, there was a generational kind of initiative. The young people have turned up massively, and you'll appreciate that Uganda is largely a young population, but more often they've not taken issues of elections very seriously. But today, you saw sections of our young people who hardly participate in the voting. They would participate in the rallies, but you find on voting day, many of them don't turn up. Many of them don't even have voter cards. But this time around, the young generation has participated. And I don't want to attribute this to any one political persuasion, but across board. You could see that a great number of them did participate. That has also gone to give strong kind of implication regarding the entire process.
Okay. Mr. Gobi, what would you attribute to this? Yesterday when we were here, we talked about the messages were of peace. Let's have a peaceful election. And here it is. So far, well delivered. We have not had very bad news coming out yet. We pray. Of course, internet has been low with the shutdown. But we pray. Of course, radios are there, TVs are there. By now, we would have known if there were really bad reports coming out of violence. And it's not there, and we are all happy. What would you attribute that to?
Maybe first because we prayed for peace, and we also yesterday made a contribution. So we should pat ourselves at the back. But seriously, Charles, like I think as Honorable Chinova said, this is an election like no one before, which we have held here, and the government responded quite emphatically when we had challenges during campaigns, first during the primaries of NRM, which were also marred by violence, and then during the campaigns for the presidential, especially election. Government responded by making sure that they cover every inch as far as security is concerned. The deployment of the different security agencies, from the military, the UPDF, to support the police, as well as the invisible security, has been on. And then you remember during as the campaigns were about to end, there have also been reports of massive movement in terms of security by arresting a number of people they suspected would be quite instrumental in causing the violence. I know this did not augur well with the number of special opposition politicians as well as their supporters, by looking at it as being selective application of the law, by picking people and put them in jail. Yet they also had the right to express themselves and so on. But I think this has been one of the strongest tenets of the current government in terms of responding to the challenge of security. And with that, they sent a very, very strong message to Ugandans that if it means going to vote, and you have this opportunity to go and express yourself, to vote the kind of candidate you would want. If you want to vote out government, it's okay. Go to the polling station, line up, cast your vote in peace. They count it in the evening, and I'm sure people have counted now on every single polling station across Uganda. They know what kind of results they got from there. Of course, at the national level here, we have started to see some few results coming in. The Electoral Commission perhaps will give us the first round. So there was no need to use force to show that someone can win the power, can win the support by using violence. That's one. Secondly, I think the issue of social media also being shut down has contributed to the relative peace during the voting. You know, it went actually across the world that Uganda has shut down internet and social media on voting day.
It was one of the leading news on CNN, yes, I think, yesterday.
I managed to read the messages below some of these stories. I saw one in the New York Post, I saw one in the Washington Post, and so many other of those American top and the British, the Telegraph and so on. But interestingly, most of the people, average people in those countries, were supportive of this shutdown in Uganda.
Why?
Many Americans actually were very happy with the Uganda government, and they said Twitter and Facebook in particular had allocated themselves a lot of power. And I think this comes at the heels of the election they have had in America recently, on which President Trump had a lot of issues with the election, which many other Americans were saying actually he was just sour graping. But out of that conversation and the chaos they have had in the US, all of those major social media platforms blocked Trump. Twitter blocked him first, Facebook blocked him, YouTube, today you saw Snapchat and others.
He's facing a lot of problem, actually. Even banks are cutting businesses with him and his family.
And he has been impeached for the second time.
The first president to be impeached for the second time.
Yes, and many of his supporters, I suspect, are the ones who were sending in this message. They were actually asking, where is this country called Uganda? We should go and understand how to manage elections, because these social media have been influencing, according to them, the election. First of all, the way the campaigns are conducted. They allocate themselves power to choose who's right, who's wrong, instead of leaving the electorate to choose. That also they have facilitated a lot of fake news, people generating their own news, and they report it freely. Some of this news usually fabricated, and I think in Uganda here you don't need to really overemphasize this. Many people in Uganda have seen how several people, younger people, have been generating things which are not there. They get a picture from Central African Republic, and they say this is someone who has been shot dead in a certain village in Uganda. They get soldiers of a certain country, they dress them up in flags of Uganda and so on. Or in other words, they try to instigate anger, especially when a certain event can be correlated to whatever they want to communicate. So in that way, you find that there has been too much noise on social media, and that noise went with this shutdown. I want to assure you, Charles, this evening you could be having one of the highest viewer kind of numbers in the country, because everybody is getting news from TV or radio. The mainstream media is back on vogue for at least a couple of days. And as you can see here, there are a lot of gatekeepers on what we say. They produce your program, they tell you the kind of setting we should be having, the kind of questions.
Quality control.
We are not here to abuse anyone.
He has actually given it a befitting name, quality control, because I was going to come for you as a journalist who benefits from the freeness of the media world. But when he said quality control, I had to keep quiet, because that is important, even to me, a professional.
Gatekeeping is very important.
Good, I agree.
And even actually, those very people on social media, and I'm one of the ardent users of social media, we ourselves block some people from our accounts. When you see someone who's so overzealous, abusive, so irritated, you block him. They put that button there that I can block you, and you stop causing a lot of
and usually they go for you inbox and send you messages and tell
now no, once I block, there's no way we can communicate again.
Totally.
What the government did now, it blocked all of us from social media.
That's a good one.
And you'll find that the very people who block others are now very angry with the government.
Actually, they are more
for doing the same thing as they do when some other people are causing a lot of noise or anger in them. So, unfortunate that we have not been able to communicate this election the way we would have loved to communicate it. Because I'm sure there are a number of things which have happened in those villages that people would have wanted us to know in real time, how they are voting and so on. It's part of democracy, but we need to look at the other side of the coin. Now we have had a peaceful election. We have voted. I know some people were saying that social media was being switched off to steal the election. We are waiting to see whether this election is going to be stolen. People have counted all the votes. They have their votes per polling station. Let Electoral Commission announce other results. And we have our DR forms, the Declaration of Results forms. Then we shall have a good
Now that
case.
you have touched on that, let's move on to the other side of the other perception or suspicion of the lack of efficiency of some of the machines. Because shortly before we came on air, and maybe Sebalo can start on that for us. Shortly before we came on air, Justice Byabakama addressed the nation from the Tally Center. And one of the things he said was that some of the biometric voter machines did not operate well. Some of them were not working. And if you followed the discussions, I don't know whether it was, I think it was Sevalo on another television, when there were reporters making, you know, they were making routes around the country, and the major report for delayed voting start was actually the biometric machine failing to work. And some people have attributed it, among other things, to the shutdown of internet. So to that extent, would you say it was proper, if that is true? Or what could have occasioned that failure of the machine?
Yeah, one thing is that...
Maybe counting the cost. You can tell us to what extent you're counting the cost of the internet shutdown in this election, apart from the piece that...
yeah, but one thing that I want to say is that the peace dividend
is bigger,
overrides any consideration. Because if you don't proactively engage processes and procedures of ensuring security, looking at the big picture, you know, what is interesting is that if anything went amiss as a result of manipulation of social media and creating situations that lead to violence, government would be blamed for that. Actually, it would appear like government has abdicated its role of securing the people. And the conversations on social media itself regarding such a mission or commission that leads to loss of life could be really something that you cannot counter in terms of the opportunity cost, the cost of the lives lost vis-a-vis the inconvenience that you've suffered as a result of shutdown of social media. That cost is immense. If it degenerates to a level where lives are lost, then that is not something that you'd be proud of. And when you are managing processes of this nature, leadership is critical, because then you can take hard decisions in the best interest of everyone. What is even interesting is that the social media shutdown did not affect just sections. It was cross-cutting. All of us, I'm an ardent user of social media, but for the last 2 days I've felt the pinch. But it is a cost worth sacrificing for the greater good and common good. So in my view, I think ensuring that the process is peaceful throughout without loss of lives, what he has indicated is typical. Around in the course of the week, some pictures had started making rounds of people who are mugged, people who are what, and people are putting captions, and you find that even the debate on the social media platform is taking a violent tone. People start talking with a lot of whatever. Then there was also something circulating regarding the pens that were brought. You know, something that really doesn't make
So
much
many
sense.
fabrications.
But it was
Yeah.
gaining ground. And today people came with their pens, not so much because of the COVID, but
because they were fearing the Chinese,
fearing that
the Chinese pen.
The Chinese pen, their mark will be. Now, how would that happen? Because people even lose logic. Because if they disappear, and then you go into counting, and there are all these processes where you should verify. But people had bought into that.
Not the letters. Don't forget forged letters.
Yes.
They have been getting letterheads of different
and,
authorities.
And attributing them to...
They write a certain...
They write a name and then say,
Facilitation.
to facilitate,
you know,
to facilitate this candidate.
Now those candidates
and they were targeting, the opposition candidates.
They were going to put on social media one of these evenings a letter written by maybe the president to the Electoral Commission chairman,
directing
you should ensure that the following happens.
Do this without further delay.
But they also
wrote those kind of
they also said that he had pulled out of the election in favor of the younger candidate.
No, they
changed the voting dates.
There's even where they
said that the NRM are supposed to vote tomorrow.
There's even where they got his caption and his real voice, and he was talking about a voting of so and so will be on the 14th.
Okay.
Now all those things. So the dividend really is much higher. But regarding the machines, definitely that is a challenge. I don't know how that challenge can be overcome at the end of the day, but thank God that they had made thorough preparations, and the fallback position of the voter register was something to fall back to, although definitely it the idea of the machines ought to serve its purpose through.
We will be discussing it more, but relevantly, our colleague Jordan is right now with at the Tally Center with the spokesperson. Is that Paul? Jordan, is that Paul with you? Hi, Jordan. Jordan, can you hear me? Hi, Jordan.
Result Tally Center here in Chambogo, where the Electoral Commission mounted its tally center, where the presidential election results will be tallied and finally declared here on Saturday, the 16th of January 2021. Now, we are going to talk to the man himself, the spokesperson of the Electoral Commission, and that is Mr. Bukenya Paul, to tell us more of a brief picture of how the whole process has been to date and what we should expect today and the days to come. Yes, Mr. Bukenya, good evening once again, sir.
Good evening, Jordan, and good evening to our viewers on New BC.
Okay.
Yeah.
How would you describe the whole exercise as you have carried it on, right from the last time we were here for nominations up to now?
Well, it's been a journey. We've traveled with you, of course, and a wide range of stakeholders. We were here last time for nominations. The candidates we nominated have been out there campaigning in very unique, ways, because this has been no ordinary election with COVID-19 to guard against. And the period we gave for campaigning ended this week on 12th, and now we've had our elections conducted across the country. It's been very participatory. We've had the public coming in and participating at various stages. It's been an engaging process. We've been reaching out back and forth to address issues that have been emerging, and we think to Ugandans it's worth it. They've endured a very challenging electoral cycle because of COVID, these aspects of the campaign, and now here we are. The choices of the people of Uganda at presidential level are going to be made public, known here, and totals given, and the candidate declared elected.
Okay. It has been a unique election, like you have said. A lot has happened during the campaigns, and we have seen candidates being arrested, a lot of things like that. And these candidates have been crying to you, the Electoral Commission. How have you helped? How would you describe the kind of scenes that we have seen within the process of the campaigns?
Well, we've seen good, bad, and ugly, because we've seen attempts to comply and comply with the COVID-19 guidelines. We've seen incidences of confrontation during enforcement of the campaigns, and of course some of the situations that went ugly, like leading to riots and even loss of life during the electoral period. So we think that the commission at all times we've been awake to potential explosive situations, and we've had the issues popping up, and the different players clashing at one point. We've been reaching out to them to find that we get a position that can get us back on course. So yeah, that's what we've seen during the campaigns. We've seen because campaigns have been at various levels, presidential, parliamentary, and local government. We've seen some candidates, of course, doing their best to comply with that, and some others being a bit, relaxed on that, which has been unfortunate. So generally, it has been a campaign that has had challenging issues, especially in enforcing SOPs, and we've gone all the way. We've used the various approaches, the engagement, the dialogue all the time. Come to the office, let's meet and talk about this. And then, of course, also law enforcement.
Which talks have not yielded anything, because in most cases you have not agreed with the candidates.
Well, we took our effort, we made the initiative, and we think that it's always very good to engage with candidates to seek solutions to issues that they are facing as challenges, and also which affect the way we organize and conduct the election. So all this has been meant to ensure that there's fairness and fair treatment to all candidates.
Okay, let us talk about today. There are areas where there were delayed provision of materials for elections. I heard that somewhere in Mukono and in some other areas. What led to that?
We need to look at incidences that have been reported as late delivery of materials, which is coming in as strange, because we delivered all these materials and they've been available in the districts for dispatch to polling stations. Why would we have that incident? So
what answers have you received so far?
So we've requested for reports to detail the times that opening of polling stations, the time for when stations open, polling stations from across the entire country. And I think we'll be able to find out what could have caused that. What we know is that there was delayed opening of some stations, not everywhere, but some stations, delayed opening, not because the materials were not there, but because some preliminary processes needed to be undertaken, and they were giving our teams quite some challenges, which were, of course, resolved when we got our technical support teams to come on board. This includes the areas, for example, in some divisions in Wakiso, which had challenges with, if I could say, loading biometric voter verification.
I was coming to that. The problem was not only in Wakiso, but our reporter in Kumi, he was in Kumi and then came to Mbale. He talked about problems with the biometric. Wakiso, it was almost the order of the day. The reporter in Karamoja Ends talked about it. The person in Masaka talked about it. So was Kampala. In the first place, what was the role of the biometric, these biometric machines, the gadgets that you brought in as the EC? What were they supposed to do? Why did we have them this time round? Let us look at them at that point first of all.
Although when you come to the challenges we had at opening, I would like to say these are issues that came up with some of the units.
What purpose were they to? Were they to serve at the polling station?
The critical thing, yes, I'm going to come to that certainly, is that we were able to have the elections conducted and voting getting underway, following the addressing the issues relating to biometric voter verification. Now, the purpose of biometric voter verification is very, very clear. This lies in the word verification. We deployed that technology to help us verify and confirm that the person who has presented himself is actually Bukenya Paul. so that they can then proceed to be issued the ballot paper. So where we had, and these I really insist, because we've gotten reports and we know that these are because we needed to help out and support, and the areas which required support were not as extensive, perhaps as displayed in some of the media reports. So yes, we did have incidences in 2 divisions of Wakiso district. The entire district had issues within 2 divisions, which were addressed promptly by the teams. So the purpose of the verification is to authenticate your identity. You've presented yourself, then we confirm that indeed this is the person who is registered as a voter. And the goal is to ensure that a person votes only once and at a polling station where they're registered as voters. So it helps to fight potential, multiple voting and even voter fraud.
In areas where these machines did not serve that purpose, what is going to happen?
Eventually, all the polling stations had the machines running. Eventually, like I mentioned, what we were talking about some delays in starting, in the opening processes. So we were able to have the machines running, and they were used in the elections.
Okay. What does it take for an election to be looked at as free and fair? And would this election be called so? Do you think this one that we have just held would qualify to be looked at as one?
Well, international standards look at some factors that are universally accepted as qualifying an election to be free and fair. Is it participatory? And people participate in the election open to all persons who may want to participate? And I think that is what happened. He nominated various candidates from across political parties, across religious lines, even age-wise. I think that makes it a fair exercise to all who wish to participate, as well as other, issues, or rather other actions that are permitted in the law. So I think that's what we set out to do, and that's what we organize.
Okay. So you just said you think this one is a free and fair election. We have had court cases every time an election is, we have held an election. Have you looked at gaps that may be looked at and people run to courts of law? For example, the incidences that have been around during the campaign time, queries that people may come up with. Have you noticed those gaps, and how are you going to handle as the entity in charge of elections?
First, Jordan, I would like to say that petitions are part of the electoral process. So when you have a petition, it's part of the electoral process, because, in a contest, and in a contest where the stakes are high like politics, you can't fail to have someone complaining about 1 or 2 aspects of the contest. That this was not fair, I need this address. So for that matter, the laws of Uganda provide for, petitions as a way of addressing any issues that may arise.
But are there areas that you have to avoid as the Electoral Commission, where you really see that this we should not allow because it will lead us into courts of law?
Of course, you can do so much. There are many stakeholders in the electoral process. As Electoral Commission, you can only do so much. And when you do your part, then there are other stakeholders to do their part. For example, the results of an election can be challenged due to the conduct or the action of other stakeholders who are not even necessarily the Electoral Commission. For example, if the supporters of another candidate come and clash with others, or remove the posters, or abuse them, or conduct themselves in a manner that violates the guidelines for campaigns, the result of the election can be challenged. What if the candidate himself or herself forges their academic papers? That comes back to them. So there are many reasons why elections are challenged, and all of that is not
Welcome back from the Tally Center, and with Jordan, interesting information there that no doubt must benefit the public from the communications, the acting communications in charge of Electoral Commission, Paul Bukenya. Before we went to the Tally Center, I had interrupted Sevalu on the question of the voter verification, the biometric voter machine verification, and Paul has given us a good glimpse into what it was supposed to do and the fact that it failed in some cases. There was a court case, the Supreme Court case of the Right Honorable Amama Mbabazi against President Museveni in 2016. And this machine was a main subject of the discussion before the court. And the court, I think there were about 8, I'm trying to recall off cuff, there were about 8 recommendations that were made by the Supreme Court, and they said, I remember I was there, and the Chief Justice who gave the main, I think who read the main ruling said that we shall follow you, and he was speaking to the Attorney General, who represents the legal representative of the Chief Legal Advisor to government, that we shall follow you, and I think they gave 2 years or something, that you must ensure that this issue is not repeated. Sebalo, starting with you, and I need both of you to weigh in on that, given the credibility of this election. Do you think that that is something that would pour some cold water on the, I think Electoral Commission especially, and government, that this matter came before court exactly the same, and 5 years later nothing was done? Do you think that is a minus on the Electoral Commission and government, that 5 years later nothing much that we can see or feel was done to make it right?
I don't agree with you, because if nothing was done, then that wouldn't be a subject of our discussion. What we are discussing is that the machines were procured, but maybe they have not served as efficiently as they would have wanted them to do.
And that's the issue we're talking about,
yeah,
the efficiency.
But
that's why we are discussing it again.
But that doesn't mean that nothing was done. Something was done, but it
not substantial.
It has had challenges. So you can look at it from the viewpoint of the generation of the technology used, the challenges that were got on the ground, but something was definitely done. And anything to do with the technology really is something that you may blame list someone about, because you are dealing with machines. And Paul has put a very good explanation, because we also have this habit of generalizing. What percentage of those machines that didn't really work properly? He indicated that they were in the minority, although we want 100%, but how many did not deliver as per expectations? But you know, like where I was, the machine worked. I voted first thing in the morning and straight away it worked. But you will get someone generalizing that in the entire. So there is also that problem of always trying to explain your loss on any other thing other than your own state of preparedness. Because some people who are going to petition using that, MPs, and they can come up and say, I lost being MP because the machines didn't work. So always there are situations where always people explain anything using other means other than what they are. But for sure, the issue of re-evaluating the source, the quality, the time of delivery, the time of trying to test the ground, I mean putting it to good test, so that on voting day you do quality assurance and quality control. I think those are gaps that the Electoral Commission should be able to fill.
Good.
But in my own view, the percentage, Paul put a very good argument that I agree with, because for him he has data from all the places, and he clearly indicated that even where they failed, they were able to support and get the machines to work at some point. But there's also the fallback position of the register at the end of the day,
the primary,
so that no one is enfranchised. I would have issues, I would lose sleep if someone didn't vote because of such omission.
Okay, Ramadan, what do you think about the biometric machine and its challenges?
I think critically these machines were procured to ensure accurate identification of the voters, such that we avoid having people voting in names which are not theirs, and so on and so forth. I would really feel that since these incidents were isolated, they should audit those areas where the machines failed and they used the register only. By auditing, what do I mean? They should find out whether those very people who voted were eligible voters, who are duly registered, they were the true owners of the identities they used to vote, or else they should really cancel their votes if they were, because now if they are isolated, like he has said, a few divisions in a district and also a few other polling stations in the villages, they are easy to get and you audit them. I wouldn't want to use that to really generalize the issue. Neither would I want to just shade it off and I say, after all, there were few, let us leave those ones. No, they could have affected the outcome of a particular candidate's, tally which he got. So I would think that as the temperature cools down of this election, the Electoral Commission should audit those areas without even waiting for courts and so on to decide or no. And then they find out whether there are any voters who are not in their registers but they voted. If they ticked someone who was of a wrong identity, they can find out from those villages. They are few. But I would really feel that it would be also playing so hard on the Electoral Commission to blame them for the failure of a few machines, because this is technology, and you can see also the circumstances in which they were operating. We were operating in a country without internet at the moment, and they were perhaps using their own portal which was specially made for them, not connected to the national, but perhaps they had thought that if ours fails in a certain place, the follow-back position will be the universal one. But that one was not there. So I think either way, we can easily audit those areas.
Good. That's about the machine. We will be discussing that more, especially in the days after today, maybe even tomorrow, or the day that the results are released, the final results, especially when we get more information on how widespread this failure of the machine was. But I agree with the fact that it needs to be found out to what was the magnitude of the failure. That would be interesting. But most especially, I think in my view, what I gathered is that, like several touched on, that there was not enough time to make the trial and to test it. I think it came so close to the election day, which could have, and that is a human error that could have led to the machine maybe not being known well enough. Let's move to the gentlemen. Let's move to looking at the campaigns itself, starting with Ramadan. the campaigns had a lot of issues. The issues of, you know, there were a number of, you know, commotions, a number of arrests, intermittent, you know, so much, you know, pushing and shoving each other, security with the candidates, and then security and coming in. Of course, there was COVID. We can start it from whatever limb. Probably, let's start with a COVID election. This election was COVIDized, and COVID became, you know, the biggest issue in this election throughout the campaign. Do you think that COVID could have affected the quality of this campaign? And so, what could have been done better?
Yes, thank you. I think really COVID was a very big issue in this campaign. And you wonder whether actually we had campaigns. Because at the beginning, the Electoral Commission told us it's going to be a scientific campaign. And by scientific, they were meaning that it's going to, they're going mainly to use the media to reach out to the voters. But most of the opposition candidates, or I don't know whether all of them we should call them opposition, the candidates who are not incumbents, anyway, who are not the incumbent, they didn't have the chance to reach out to the voters as they would have loved to. And some of them just had to break the rules to ensure that they reach the voters. Particularly in the presidential election, because that's where most of the cameras were focused by the mainstream media and social media. We have seen a lot of reports of violence against the candidates, and also candidates exposing their supporters to COVID-19. And as a result of that, you saw that there was a lot of police presence in this campaign. And the tear gas, it was a tear gas campaign, if we could have one of that kind. And to me, this actually could have affected the outcome we are likely to get out of the Electoral Commission in these 2 days. How? I suspect there was a lot of sympathy vote in this election to those candidates who have on a daily basis been shown to people in their sitting rooms facing the wrath of police as a way of implementing or enforcing the Electoral Commission guidelines, the guidelines themselves informed by the COVID SOPs. You could, particularly candidates of NUP, Honorable Kyagulanyi, the candidate of FDC, Honorable Amriat, and Mr. Tumukunde, General Tumukunde, and to some extent others like Katumba.
Katumba, but you know, the Katumba, the Katumba Oye man was
Katumba actually benefited from this scientific campaign, in a sense that he gave it some life, especially to the younger people. They looked at him as, you know, an entertainer, almost bordering a comedian, to the extent that even he announced the day before voting that he's going to launch his manifesto. And the police also helped him, because wherever he was, they were running with the police from day one. When he actually failed to raise the money, then he came the following day. The tire, he had, I think, one of his the tires of the vehicles burst, and he had to run to the polling
physically,
to whatever, to the center to get nominated physically. So he really benefited from that. But Honorable Kyagulanyi and Honorable Amriat in particular, I feel we haven't yet received the results. perhaps people on the polling stations, they know better how the results have been. I feel those two might have benefited from what we call a sympathy vote to some extent, that they defied the guidelines of Electoral Commission to campaign scientifically. And in Uganda, you know, people who break the rules and the police is trying to ensure that they enforce the rules against them in politics, they tend to be the heroes of the people. I don't know whether it is in our DNA or it is a coincidence, but apparently to me, that seems to be a factor. So in that you find that this led to a lot of violence within these campaigns, and I suspect it might also have affected, although Honorable was saying that this has been a superb turnout for people to go and vote. I suspect there might have been a low turn-up for women in some of these areas where they suspected that perhaps there might be violence also on the...
But shall we know that if the turn-up, if the general turn-up is high,
yes,
or at least higher than 2016 or 2011,
yes,
as the early signs are showing, we're yet to be confirmed. Do you think that we will then know those variables?
Later, when we analyze, when we disaggregate that data, we shall know the females and males who voted.
But usually our trends, unless radically changes, even like where I voted, the women were absolute majority. They normally turn out for
where.
So, but scientifically, we need to
on the contrary,
get evidence on that.
Yes, on the contrary, where I saw very few women where I was, and also I know a number of my friends who are women who didn't vote, and they have no major reason other than fear to go there.
Okay.
So I think that to some extent could have contributed to that. Sympathy vote for the two candidates, plus that, and also the fact that they didn't campaign. For example, the incumbent didn't campaign. His supporters didn't see him. He was only on TV and also addressing his party leaders in every region. So he didn't go to the voter. Then these others also didn't have time to campaign, literally, because going to 3 districts in one day, it was like just passing through, you know, driving through. You stop for a few minutes and you talk a few things, even they are not related to your manifesto, because you will not have time to, you know, give details of manifesto, then you move on. So this has been a campaign which was no campaign in my view, and I think most Ugandans have voted depending on either emotions of saying, this one Vambi has suffered a lot in this campaign, let me give them a vote, or I am tired of this, or I am a supporter and a loyal supporter of this candidate, and so on and so forth, or the party.
Okay, let's go for a break. When we come back, I will bring in Honorable Mike Sevalo to weigh in on the campaigns proper as they went in, as they went by, and we will continue the discussion. We are here to provide, you know, a cut through of the voting, the election, the campaigns, how it went, and you know, going forward into D-Day. The climax of this all will be on Saturday. I think the Constitution provides for 48 hours within which the Electoral Commission is demanded to release the results, and it started at exactly 4 p.m. on Thursday, today, and so that 48 hours provided by the Constitution, which is a constitutional mandate or directive or order, falls at 4 p.m. on Saturday. So within that time, Mr. Byabakama and team must release the final results. And but let's go for a break now, and we will be right back shortly.
Human rights defender is anyone working to promote and protect human rights in a non-violent manner. This often exposes them to risk. Are you a woman human rights defender, a journalist, legal professional, youth and/or person with a disability engaged in defending the rights of others, and your right has been violated or abused in the process, or you have encountered someone defending people's rights whose rights have been violated? Contact the National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders Uganda on toll-free line 0800 100 250 or helpline 0778 576 852.
Inyo bibori pudajo kwa paseyane dola pakina sewo. Nasodit, ojaikina boisit araibe polling station na iwadika unajo kwape aseyan, etupakini, itodu akona wadikaita ni itodu tosbe iraija aseyan na imoriaritos, national ID araibo natakadi na sewo. Araima motorija wadikaita ngun, ingite presiding officer o wanyane register la seyak, IT gogong akona wanyoneta. Ebune presiding officer aitogogong akona wanyoneta itosoma ingesa chuma na enyaritai biometric voter verification machine. Akaulanin inakino japa pula naseo kosodi dojo ayekari akalaya akwetar engarenon li pudajo itosomai akwetaret arebo natai damakine bokorit. Kasoi dola kakona papula naseo kwa pito dikinaje presiding officer ikunya rubojo ngaren kosoda irupaki na kona voti a box naseo arebo nat ballot box. Ebunangara kina ni naseo ai wadike koni bokorit ai todu nebe idauja isek. Itwasa makona pedor asekune ngareno nili pudajo. Ekotojo jenebe aboiso nwaseo ege uneto sawe diope la tupuruch teni otomo nolo atibong. Oloto nebe itorija isek tomo sawa oseke kone ngarenon. Anuaja nipu ipejo ike website www.ec.or.ug. Erai na isiraret ne ya utije Electoral Commission lwepolo ikitosa sewo o Uganda.
God has given Uganda an opportunity to come to the polls, to choose our leaders, to find very important persons in our country and give them the responsibility to lead us. It's a very positive exercise. It's a very positive undertaking. When people come together to vote and they do it in peace and justice and fairness is exercised, then the choices are supposed to be choices made by man but approved of God. Scripture says in the book of Matthew, blessed are the peacemakers, to be called children of God. Would you now venture into that and become a child of God, a man and a woman of peace? And by the way, after the 14th, 15th, and 16th of January, this month, everything should go back to normal, because the people who must occupy our offices will have been selected. You and I have one job to do. Go and elect your candidate. Make a choice. Find somebody who is an ally. Find somebody who will help you. Somebody who will push your agenda. Somebody who will help you go where you want to go. That's the person you should choose. Don't be taken over by people who don't know what they're doing. Make a choice, a personal choice. Pick the right person, thumb the right person. After that, sit back and relax. When you make a good choice, God will honor it. God bless you.
My fellow countrymen, my name is Robert Kayanja. I'm a pastor and a preacher of the gospel. I was born in 1962 in January, and this wonderful country was born in 1962 in October. So we are really like twins. I love Uganda. I love the fauna. I love the mountains, the hills, and I love the people of Uganda. We are resilient. We are wonderful people. I want to pray for you because today is a special day when we elect our leaders. And I'm praying for the peace of this country and the tranquility. We've just continued. Soon we're going to finish 120 days of fasting as we've been praying for this country. But you know what? The grace of God is upon this nation. We have a mandate as a country. For God and my country is not just a cliche or a motto. It is the force that drives this country to become better. 30 years ago or more, God gave us the peace, and our peace is non-negotiable. And God has allowed this democracy to grow. And I'm grateful because this democracy, we are seeing it today. In this election today, be reminded, we have the oldest candidate and the youngest candidate. It can only happen in Uganda when a 23-year-old is eyeing for the highest office in the country. And yet, also the old man is still vying and presenting his manifesto for this country. It only happens in Uganda. We are the most privileged people. Please, I pray, don't violate this wonderful democracy that God has given us. It may not be perfect and it may be young, but we are going somewhere. So I wish you the best, and I'm praying for you that God will protect you and keep you, Uganda, and we will be the power of Africa. Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, as Ugandans are casting their votes, may your great hand be upon us. May your spirit be upon us. May we continue to be a nation of progress. May you protect our armed forces, the army, the police, the prisons, and the security guards. May you protect every Ugandan. My Father, as we cast our votes, may you protect us and defend us from COVID-19. My Father, bless our nation with the best of agriculture, with the best of innovation, and with the best of the land. And when the elections results come out, let us accept the results, because we know it would have been done by us, Ugandans. We thank you, Lord, because your Holy Spirit guides us and keeps us, and you continue to put your hand upon our nation. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
My fellow Ugandans, I am Professor Mugisha. I am here to congratulate you on having gone through 2020. It wasn't easy. To wish you success in fighting COVID-19. But even more urgently than that, at the moment, starting on the 14th to the end of the month, we are going into elections 2021. I want to encourage you, peacefully, go and choose. Choose the leader that you prefer at all levels. Choose the leader you prefer. Then go home and await the results. Let us trust our parties, our agents, and the Electoral Commission to do its part in giving us the right results. After that, let us stay peacefully together. We are Ugandans. Let us build our country and go forward together. Let us not have chaos. I, as an individual, was a refugee in Kenya. I was a refugee in Zambia, and I would hate to see my fellow Ugandan as a refugee. We have 1.4 million refugees in the various refugee camps in Uganda. I do not want to see any of you having to undergo such a challenge. Let us be peaceful. I wish you to have a peaceful, successful vote, and let us move our country forward.
Tuliko waddi okuleeta obutabanguko, obulabe, okukyawagana buli lwe tuba tugenda okulonda. Tuleme kuleka bululu kutwawula. Nze nnonze mirembe, emirembe gye twetaaga mu maka gaffe, mu bifo byaffe gye tubeera, ne mu nsi yaffe yonna Uganda. Nze Nonze Mirembe.
This message is brought to you by the Netherlands Institute for Multi-Party Democracy in partnership with Inter-Party Organization for Dialogue, iPod.
Welcome back from the break, and we are looking at the campaigns as they went. We are looking at the issues that came up during the campaigns by the candidates, and we are looking at the different parameters, the different variables that went through this election. Voting was peaceful, as has been reported so far, and a good thing to note from across the country. To discuss and analyze some of the those issues, we have the Honorable Mike Sevalu, a former Member of Parliament in the Ugandan Parliament, a former legislator at the East African Legislative Assembly, and a member of the NRM party. And we have Mr. Ramadan Gobi, an analyst. He's a professor at Makerere University Business School, a professor of economics. And before we went into the break, I had requested Gobi to look at the other issues around the campaigns. Coming to you now, Mike, the issue of, you can start from where Gobi left, but you don't need to repeat them. You can start from the violence and that bedeviled this campaign, and the commotions, and then of course the security perspectives.
Yeah, but
what impressions did you have of them?
Yeah, I think the one thing that comes out clearly, and it needs to be appreciated by our viewers, is that a campaign is essentially driven by people, and the numbers therefore become of essence, because we are talking about a democratic process, which democratic process is determined by majority, and in order to attract majority to your side, you must engage massively. So essentially, a campaign without rallies ceases to be a good way of engagement. But because of the COVID-19 disruptions and challenges, we had to adopt a methodology that minimized body contact or physical contact, therefore played much more in the media, social media, print, and electronic media. Now that disadvantaged all actors, and more so those that chose to play by the rules. And candidate Museveni was very compliant to that, and he missed out on the opportunity to interact with the masses the way he usually does. And he's someone who is good at working up the masses with his ideas, with his interesting way of communication. So that kind of denied him the opportunity to build a climax, a crescendo in terms of vote hunt. You'll always appreciate that he begins with a massive rally, usually in Kololo, and he also concludes with a massive rally that builds the momentum up to the voting day. But this time around, such an arrangement could not be effected given the COVID-19 disruptions. But also the other candidates, some of them by default did defy the standard operating procedures, and it could explain some of the excitement that has been generated up to the polling day, because they saw some captions of crowds, and that could have created some impression to some of the voters that, look, I think this person is doing well, given that we've been able to see crowds. And without comparisons, then some people can form an imagination that all is well and victory is imminent. So that also played in the dynamics of things. But the issue of time also, 2 months or so, for the so many districts that have come up, was a challenge across board. But one thing that stood out is in terms of structures. Parties with the structures were able to use the party structures to get a trickle-down effect of the message of the candidates. And I think that is an area where NRM did very well, because it has massive structures across the country, and the presidential message as contained in the manifesto was shared through the structures up to the village level and the grassroots level. So that also played. Now, regarding the violence and issues of that nature, security nature, again, because of the standard operating procedures, there are candidates who straight away opted for defiance, knowing that playing by the rules and by the book, maybe they may not make the impact that was desirable. So they chose to flout the standard operating procedures, which attracted the attention of security in terms of trying to get them to comply. And you'll definitely remember the Luka episode, where again, out of the police trying to intervene, it generated into riots across. But the way some of these activities were undertaken, you could see some level of coordinated kind of action and activity, and a kind of vigilante arrangement also appeared apparent. But I want to appreciate that ever since that, we didn't get any other major incident, but the tear gas here and there, running battles with the police, trying to restrain the candidates were very commonly seen on media platforms. Then we also need to look at the role of leadership in this entire process. Political leadership, security leadership, and other considerations. I think there are cases where you could see areas where you could have them negotiated and appreciated, but because of leadership style, people wouldn't buy in terms of appreciating and understanding the situations. Very often you could see political leaders, candidates exchanging with the police in a manner that negates the decorum expected at that level. All those dynamics quite played a role in terms of influencing the trends. Then you also have issues to do with the media. You have issues to do with the civil society organizations that came up, those that were seen to be maybe appearing to influence or interfering or abating or taking partisan considerations in the execution of their mandates. I think those were also of interest because they also had a security dimension that came to play at the end of the day. But all in all, I really want to be thankful to God that we've been able to get through this process thus far, and we've been able to conduct an electoral process that, as of now, there are no major reports of incidences of insecurity. Largely, it has been peaceful, and I think that is something very good to write home about at the end of the day. I pray that that remains the case even after the results are announced. because at times at that point you normally get certain dynamics. But I want to, to imagine that we remain calm, we remain civil, we appreciate and we get the right information from the right sources, because there's also the problem of the sources. You may get people start announcing even before and create a situation of confusion, raise anxiety, raise expectations, and then fail to meet the expectations. That has always been a major weakness, especially in the opposition ranks, raising expectations and failing to manage or even meet the expectations, and it ends up degenerating into undesirable situations. So basically that would be my take.
Honorable, you have been in elective politics. Is it possible realistically to fail to raise expectations when you are campaigning for yourself? Or even for that matter for any candidate. I thought every candidate, you see in the US, it is always a two-horse race. Republican, Democrat, or Democrat and Republican. But for us here, we hear only two candidates, when there are actually 7. Some of them are 6. But if the Green Party or the Environmental Party candidate speaks, they will speak as if they are winning. Isn't that the character of campaigning itself?
Yeah, it is a character, but I think you need to do it within limits. And you need to do it in such a way that there is a great possibility of meeting such expectations. And the history of our opposition leaders has made it even more apparent that people have lost interest. Actually, some in the opposition. When someone says that I'll never subordinate myself before electoral process, when so and so is chairing, next thing you find someone is presenting his papers to be nominated. To be very specific, Colonel Mwesigye and Professor Badru saying I will never appear, I will never stand. Then next thing you find he's on the ballot and he has presented his papers to the same person whom he swore never to appear before as a candidate. Now, such extreme expectations do deflate, because at the end of the day, it is like what is going to happen this time. Severally, it has happened to the contrary. So that is also a bit of a problem. Okay. And it has worked very negatively in the opposition. I will not stand, I will not do this. You will see him going. All these kind of excitements and populist approaches come to haunt you at the end of the day when you've swallowed humble pie.
I want us to touch briefly, but it will be clearer by tomorrow. Just at a glimpse, I'm getting information from home, Zombo district, and you have to understand, this is home from back in my backyard. I'm getting information. Zombo was carved out of Nebi for starters, and it is now a district of its own. So now, out of Nebi, we have 3 districts. There is Pakwach district, there is Zombo district, and there is Nebi district, the mother district. But results from Pakwach have not yet received. The ones I've received so far, Zombo, the reporting is that Okoro County MP is Gabriel. Gabriel is NRM, and then Ora County, it has 2 constituencies directly, and then 1 woman. And then Ora County, they have returned the incumbent, who is Songa, and then he is in the 10th Parliament. But Gabriel is a new candidate. Actually, he's a businessman who hails from Tororo, but he has lived in Paida for some time, and he defeated the incumbent, who is a minister, the Honorable Engineer Dujanga. That's the person he defeated in the primary elections. Okay. So he went ahead to win. But he's also NRM. Honorable Songa is also NRM. Then the woman MP Zombo has also elected a newcomer as well. This newcomer is the one who defeated, again, another minister, Honorable Grace Kuyochin, in the primary. So 2 ministers from from Zombo were defeated. Now NRM has got the 3 MPs, all the 3 from Zombo district. Now Nebi, I'm getting the report I'm getting here now from the district, Padiere County. They have recalled our incumbent, who is Joshua Anywarach, and they have elected Isaka, who is an NRM now. Joshua Anywarach is an independent because he's in this parliament. He was in the last parliament as well. And then the Nebi municipality, they have returned the incumbent, that is Hashim. And then the woman MP, they have elected a new person who is Achibu. So from Nebi district, all the 3 MPs, NRM. From Zombo district, all the 3 MPs, NRM. So we are left with Pakwach to see what the greater Nebi, the 3 districts return. Is this, though very small at this point, is this a kind of, you know, a semblance of what we are going to see of Parliament, mainly new MPs and the old ones being routed out? And to what extent do you see the competition, the contest between NRM and the opposition, let's say generally at this point, but if you like, in some areas, in some regions, NUP turning up as the leading opposition with the majority MPs? What do you think? Starting with Gobi.
Thank you. I think Charles will need to put a disclaimer first that these are still results which have not been confirmed by the Electoral Commission.
Yeah.
Because you are like declaring the winners. But the Electoral Commission has the powers to do so.
For the MPs, they are usually declared from the district.
They have already been declared.
They are usually declared from the district.
Not usually, that is where they are.
But I mean, have they been declared? That is my concern.
The law that I studied tells me that, say the fact as it is, they are usually declared, the law says they are usually declared from the district.
I know, but they haven't yet. So, of course, these preliminary kind of results coming in indicate that we might have a very huge turnover at the current parliament for a number of reasons, definitely. As we have seen, this election has been like no one before. There are a lot of younger people who have been voting, and they kind of wanted to change, especially those who have been in parliament for a long time and so on. So I wouldn't be surprised when a number of the incumbents in the 10th parliament don't get opportunity to come back. That's one. And you'll find that there are also a lot of local politics which has played in this campaign. The local issues. You'll find them in different areas. I'm not very familiar with the West Nile, but when you look at, for example, Kampala here, there's going to be a huge turnover also, you like it or not. Busoga area, parts of Kasese, and the central region generally, and other pockets of areas, not forgetting about Western Uganda. So, but I'm also worried about the quality of parliament, the 11th parliament you're going to have, because of a number of reasons. And we have spoken about these, Charles, before. This campaign was run almost on a slogan of getting a new Uganda and having new people in place, in other words. And I would really feel that, especially where the NUP is going to win, is going to have the more punching power, you are going to see a lot of new faces coming. But those new faces, I'm afraid they're going to be quite cantankerous in that parliament, because they are coming like this defiance kind of vote. When I was a younger man at Makerere, doing my first degree, in UID, we had some stewards. One of them was Honorable Mavike. I don't know whether actually he has performed well in much in the East.
Much in the East.
I wish him good luck. He used to tell us that, you know, this election is going to be very fundamental, you guys. Even if it means voting a jerry can, which is in green, vote a jerry can.
He was then DP.
Yeah. He was among the leaders of UID. Vote a jerry can against anyone else, as long as it is in green. And I'm afraid we might find that the same spirit has worked in this one. Don't mind about anything else, vote. Those who are in red, you might end up having, you know, that kind of quality of legislators.
But should that be a worry? Because our own His Excellency, the President, has said that before, that I need people who can support my program.
And I disagree.
And when he said, you remember when he famously said, for me I disagreed with him on that, that even if they are going to sleep, as long as they can wake up and vote for NRM, it is okay. So does that necessarily affect the quality? Because then...
I personally disagreed with him, and I think time has absorbed you and I, those who disagreed, because the quality of legislation went down when people started voting like that. And it has caused a lot of problems in Uganda, in the way we have seen serious policy matters not being given attention, and the parliament is more obsessed with certain debates, especially those concerning their own welfare, and then the populism also. You know, once you can dance on top of tables, or you can cause a lot of havoc around, you can speak in tongues, you are the best for the people. So, like Kampala here, the capital city is being represented to me by a legislation which does not really add a lot of value, in my view. But that's what people voted. And to me, I think it was a protest vote. And I wouldn't want to see this continuing, going forward, to be the same matter. But now it is too late for us. Ugandans have voted. And as you know, our good friend Abdu Katuntu, usually what he says on our behind the headlines.
I wonder how he's faring.
I also don't know how my good... Abdu, you can please update us. He said that countries get the leaders they deserve. So those constituencies which vote particular individuals, I've heard some rumors also how Kampala people are voting, have voted today. I'm waiting for the declarations. We might see a very interesting parliament of 11.
Honorable Sevalo, what do you think? From the bit that I read.
Yeah, from the bit that you read, it's interesting, but I want to believe that the dynamics are going to play differently in different regions. Different factors on the ground are going to inform the decisions that different regions may have taken. In some cases, you may witness a wave just sweeping across, not necessarily reflecting much more depth in terms of quality and quantity, but simply a wave, and people just go and ride on the wave. So that is likely also to play a ball. But like Gobi has said, the quality of Parliament is something that is going to be of interest to Ugandans. because we are at a point where we need some good level of critical thinking at the leadership, especially of an institution like Parliament. But some of the kind of leaders that have presented themselves may not fit the level that is expected. But at the end of the day, who am I or who are you to deny what the people have picked for themselves?
The people have spoken. And you know what they say? You know what the Italians say? Or what they say about the voice of the people? I think you know it.
Yeah.
Vox populi, vox Dei. That the voice of the people is the voice of God.
Yeah, definitely. So
that is the bitterness.
That is it.
Or the sweetness of democracy.
So what we are likely to see by end of tomorrow, when we get a much more clearer picture, you are going to see trends, and the trends being informed by different factors on the ground. In terms of trajectory, tomorrow is best suited for better analysis, because then we'll be able to see the northern, how are they and what is informing their choice options. You are going to see central, already some dynamics playing ball in terms of the trend. You are going to see the east, the greater eastern. You are going to see western, and you are also going to see Rwenzori region. It has its unique factors. There are trends emerging there that can influence the new trends that you may see there. So you are really going to see quite interesting, and the analysis will be better after knowing the trends and being able to appreciate what is informing that. But I find the NEBI trend interesting, because that then means that NRM is gaining ground there to the extent that two candidates who defeated ministers have been given a mandate to come to Parliament. That speaks volumes on the side of the incumbents, but to see that another has been added on the lot and the entire district is fully NRM, that is a trend that is likely to be very interesting in terms of what is informing it. And I wish to see the trend of the whole of Western Nile. I think by tomorrow, close of day tomorrow, we should have a picture, because it is interesting. I want to see Arua municipality, because we are now also going to see emerging parties, because we are now looking at NOP has already created some presence. It has already won some constituencies. So in terms of new parties, it is already claiming its place on the high table. But we need to see how FDC is playing in terms of having been the major opposition or the leading opposition. How are they going to factor themselves in the narrative of the opposition politics? Do they maintain their leadership position as opposition? Do they cede ground to NUP? And in given areas, how do they play ball? Because like in Central here, do they stand a chance? Where is their favorable ground as an opposition party? Then we also need to look at the ANT. Are they registering any success across so that they become members of IPOD? Because IPOD is very attractive these days. And any party that wants to ground itself well in Parliament, you must make a presence in Parliament. MP. So at least one MP, so you qualify. So you look at all these new parties. Do they aspire to get their rightful position so that they can claim stake on what is in Parliament for parties that are represented in Parliament? All those dynamics are going to be very interesting, but the most interesting is going to be that of the independents. You know, in terms of nominations, they pulled off the biggest number of nominated candidates at independent level. So again, we want to see how do they play, and if they've won, what were the factors that gave them leverage over those members that were sponsored by parties. Is it individual merit? Is it that the parties were so weak in those areas? Is it that the individuals are so strong? Those are going to be very interesting, because when you are independent, you don't ride on the back of a party infrastructure, party manifesto, and party principal who is a presidential candidate. There are so many candidates that win because of candidate Museveni when he goes to an area, and many NRM candidates have suffered a bit of this problem, because when the president is campaigning and he goes to an area and he mobilizes well, especially with the masses, and he points at a candidate that is my son, please send me so and so. There are many candidates who have always rode on that and made it to parliament. Now with the COVID disengaging that kind of arrangement, quite a number may suffer the disadvantage of not getting the party leader pronouncing himself in their favor in their constituency. So all these dynamics.
Let me ask as a follow-up, and I will need also Ramadan to weigh in on that. You tickled my mind when you referred to the parliamentary dynamics. I want to say this, that both as a matter of fact and probably perceptive politics, President Museveni is right now a factor and a candidate because of Parliament. Why do I say so? The 10th Parliament brought him back to the ballot paper, in my view. Why do I say so? If the Constitution stood as it were, or as it was, President Museveni, having clocked 75, would have been out of today's ballot, right? He would not have stood.
Yeah.
But the Toji Kwatako, or the fight that NRM had against Toji Kwatako, that they succeeded in amending the Constitution and removed the age limit, eventually brought him back to be a candidate in this. And therefore, a factor that the 10th Parliament played in making him a candidate. Do you think the 11th Parliament is going to have such other critical, essential, important, significant role on how the country moves forward by 2026?
You are beginning with me?
Whoever is ready.
You are the veteran.
I'm passing ball.
Yeah, you know, it's like...
You can pass it to him, you can score.
It is like in leadership.
Yeah.
Every generation of leaders have their historical role, depending on the factors on the ground and circumstances on the ground.
Now you have gone to Franz Fanon.
Yeah. And now that we have all these emerging kind of dynamics politically, definitely the 11th Parliament will have its place in our history in terms of engaging the challenges of the day, leadership challenges of the day, in terms of ensuring that they are in tandem with the dynamics on the ground. Definitely this electoral process may generate new dimension. You may find that we may need to review our constitution in one way or another. So definitely every parliament will end up finding some premium of what to deal with in a manner that is strategic, operational, or in a manner that is necessary as per the time. But as of now, let's confine them to the traditional roles of parliament, of doing legislation, of representation, and of appropriation, but within the framework of what is within their mandate.
Definitely, their mandate will be that of legislation that they will perform. What do you think, Ramadan?
I think that this 11th Parliament is going to play a critical role in legislating development and transformation of Uganda. Because my feeling is that we have done a lot of politics in the 8th, 9th, and 10th Parliament, because those were having a lot of controversial political decisions to make. But going forward, I think most of those have been now done. And what is now remaining so critically is how do we take Uganda to another level in terms of economic transformation? Maybe I'm biased on that, in that area, because being an economist, I would think that that's where the country should be heading. But also I look at the manifestos of the leaders who have stood in this election, the parties, the key parties which are likely to win this election. The NRM party, the NUP, and the FDC. Almost all of them, the key issues they took to the electorate were about how do we create jobs? How do we transform the economy generally? But how do we reduce inequality such that the economy grows with everybody included in the basket? Among other things, how do we reduce poverty, especially at regional level? We would want to see the kind of spatial efficiency catered for and spatial equity. So I would feel that whichever party is going to win this election, especially at the presidential level, the Parliament is going to be so critical in helping it to implement these manifestos by ensuring that they legislate the necessary laws and also support policy making so that Uganda can get to another level. We have spoken for so long how we need to be middle income economy. We have spoken for so long how we are not creating enough jobs to employ the younger people. We have spoken for so long the opportunities that we need to create. I would feel that this is going to be the key contribution of the 11th Parliament on how do we support the executive to implement these manifestos which have been put forward. Then the political reforms also, they will be there. Some reversals in some of the political decisions which we have taken as a country might be needed. Others, some new political reforms could be also required to take Uganda to another level. But also I feel there are loads of unfinished business by the 10th Parliament going forward, because it didn't have enough time to legislate a number of bills which are so critical for the development of this country. And with the COVID coming into the game, into the play, it has also almost erased a full year of legislation, serious legislation. Because most of the legislation which happened after March, they were really to help government to fight COVID. And we lost a lot of time. You remember when we hosted the speaker on the Behind the Headlines, she spoke about a lot of other, bills which have not been brought by the state, and also those which needed to be expedited. So I would feel that some unfinished business will go into the 11th Parliament. So, but critically, we need a serious Parliament to legislate Uganda into development.
Okay.
Not
just political.
And maybe something small to add.
Yeah.
This Parliament will be coming at a time when we still have the effects of COVID. and you have a continuity plan of any nature, inheriting it and bringing in due momentum and dimension is a critical aspect of the new leadership in order to give the country direction, impetus, and focus.
Okay. We are left with about 3 minutes. We need to wind up so that we can really go and rest for tomorrow. But in these 3 minutes, I want in 1 minute each of you. I'm looking at the figures of 2011. The winner of the campaign, the elections of 2011, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni got 5.4 million, which was 68%, of course. 5.4 million. And then the person who came second, Dr. Mwesigye, got 2,064,000, which was 26%. 5 years later, the winner, President Museveni, added only 400,000 something, because he got 5.9. Mwesigye added almost 1.4, and he got about 3.5 million votes or voters. This time, in 2016, there were about 15 million people, voters, but the turn-up was about 67% or 70 thereabout. I forget the exact figure. But this time we have 18.1 million voters. It is on the board. 18.1 million voters from the 34,684 polling stations across the country. Do you think the winner in this election, or even if you can hazard, do you think that the leading candidate has potential to either keep that vote of 5.6 or 5.9 and add on to, take to victory? Or do you think that the second candidate, which is Noop from what we are following, the preliminaries coming and from the campaigns, that they have capacity to get more than the 5 million or 5.9 that the leading candidate got in 2016? Maybe Sebalu, you can start in 1 minute. What do you think about those figures? If you're crunching the numbers and you're sitting in your strategy room and you're looking at this situation room and you're looking at how do we get the figures on our side from the different regions, do you have capacity? And you're talking of the registered voters being 18, and you know that 18 million, and you know that the turn-up was very good.
Yeah, that is quite an interesting dimension of this electoral process. It has attracted a lot of young people across board. I may not go into specifics of figures, but I want to believe that my candidate will be able to gain more ground in northern Uganda. Already indicative results from Western Nile present a very good picture. Parts of Eastern coming out good. Western is his usual traditional tough in terms of a vote catch.
Where you win
now
from.
Kampala Central region is where we are likely to have to suffer some setbacks in various parts of the Central region. Largely, he stands a chance of increasing on that figure that you've referred to. But in proportionate terms, it may not be so much of a big increase, but I see a trajectory that keeps him improving every other time over the electoral process.
Okay, the numbers man, figures man.
Charles, I have a feeling we are overplaying the turn-up. COVID, I suspect, has impacted on the ability of people to go and vote, particularly those who had to travel longer journeys. Younger people who were here in Kampala and they had to go to the villages to vote. I'm sure many of them didn't have the ability to move.
Transport costs were extremely high.
Cost is so high.
To West Nile, it is 100,000 in a bus.
Yeah.
It
so
used to be 35, like 40. One way.
Say, why should I spend 100,000 to go, or 200,000 to go and vote?
Plus.
Someone. So I suspect many younger people didn't go to vote, who would have loved to go and vote. But also you need to look at the economic impact generally could have affected the turn-up. But that said, I think the voting patterns are not going to change a lot. In terms of the blocks, Kampala, Wakiso, Mukono, predominantly and historically opposition. It's likely to continue with that trend and might actually gain more votes for them, because here the turn-up was much
really
higher.
Massive, yeah.
Yeah, much higher, because those who were able to register here were able to go and vote. And the lines have been quite long wherever they have been. Kasese area, we are likely to see changes there a bit, from the opposition being a very big stronghold for them, now to some inroads by the NRM. Why? Because the Rwenzori initiative, the presidential initiative for Rwenzori region, which was spearheaded by Operation Wealth Creation and the person of General Saleh and ability to attract enthusiasm and mobilization capacity he has, I suspect could have changed a bit of that area. I'm waiting to see. The same with the northern Uganda, of course, Acholi sub-region. I also suspect NRM could have turned the tables. Then eastern Uganda, I think the areas of Bugisu, the opposition is still could be very strong there, especially the urban areas of Mbale, Site, and those others. I suspect the opposition must have performed quite well. But when you get a bit on the far east of Teso and Sebei, I really suspect there that the numbers for the NRM could have increased there, because of also a number of things which have happened in those areas, for some of us who follow the political economy of the country. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of gain and loss in terms of votes of various groups. But it is going to be a big battleground in the center here, in central Uganda, in Kampala, Wakiso. There is going to be quite a big battle between whoever is going to win it and the run-up. And we can all guess those two who are likely to be those two. And then the other areas, I think also, of course, Western Uganda, as you said, and yourself, is a stronghold for the incumbent. There is not much, likely shock someone would expect there. If anything, actually, I might also suspect that in particular areas of where there were pockets of strong opposition because of Dr. Mwesigye, they might also now a bit overturned, because there was that vote which usually comes in Uganda, sectarian vote. This time it might not be the case. So as a person who stands somewhere without results yet and without a lot of media help coverage because of the shutdown of internet and so on, I would really hazard guesses, because I've been seeing the trends and so on, that this election might be a mirror image in somehow of 2011, more of 2011 than 2016.
No worries. Whatever we were forced to speculate on, especially on numbers and the specifics, tomorrow I am very sure, God willing, we will get the figures on the spot and we will be able to discuss them. Tomorrow should be a more interesting one, I can assure you. And thanks a lot. Thanks to Honorable Mike Sevalu.
Charles, also,
thanks to Mr. Ramadan Gobi.
Many younger people
yeah,
registered for IDs and they forgot to register for voting. That also, you need to note it. I've had a lot of those things, especially in Kampala. That section where...
But then I thought that if they did not register for voting, then they are not captured in the 18 million.
Yeah, that's why you see it is only 41% of those on the register you saw who are below 30 years.
Yeah.
So that means now Uganda, which is a typically younger country, has been mainly voted for. The leader who's going to lead has been mainly voted for by those who are middle-aged and the elderly.
And the elderly.
Yeah.
Those who want to...
That also is something which we need to
put interesting.
Into consideration.
Coming up next is going to be my colleague Tony Kent Chaze, together with Mark Wadulo Arnold and Jagenda Semakula. They will be coming up to continue and dance throughout the night on the show here. And for me, I'm signing off with the team. And also look out for Mr. Mututa James, who will be coming at midnight to wrap up on what happened during the day on Thursday, the voting day, and going forward. But I promise you, keep it here at UBC. We will be bringing you the entire analysis, the updates of the election results as they trickle in, and that will continue. And I told you up to, at the most, 4 p.m. on Saturday. Let's have a good evening and keep it here. Don't touch that knob at all. Bye-bye.
Good morning, Uganda. Today is a great day to make someone's day. A wonderful day to rewrite the future. Today is a beautiful day to light up their world. A marvelous day to make a brand new start. The perfect day to make the world smaller. Uganda, today isn't just another day. Today is your day.